Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final session of TSTM Community of Practice for the program year 2026. We're just going to give people a couple more minutes to get in and get settled, and then we will get started. All right, happy Friday, everybody. I am going to hand it over to Shandine to start us off with the introductions.
Ishehe Jen Yant Bene Shea Shandin Deputy Inshke. Hishkan Hitzohan and Shlon Atlana Bashish Chin, Twittich Eatney Dasha Che, Don Atlana Dasha Nala. So good morning. So we've been together all year long, but as always, I like to introduce myself in my clans. So I am yucca fruit strung out in a line on my mother's side. My father's side is Little Light. My mother's grandfather is Bitterwater, and my father's father is Lodgegrass. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over. So we won't have Debbie or Dr. Nadia with us today, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jockandi.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Jackie. It's good to see your faces here today, or your names. And looking forward to talking more about TSTM. And now I'll give it back to Jen.
Yes, and everyone, hi again. Um, as you know, I am Jen Lane, the Technology Instructional Specialist at ADE and the TSTM State Liaison. So, moving on, let's talk about our community of practice. So, our goals for our community of practice is just to create this community where we can share ideas, questions, resources, and promising practices, and then get to collaborate with other professionals utilizing the TSTM framework. And just as a quick review, what is TSTM? We have the 9 skills that matter, the 5 topic areas, and the 3 instructional approaches. And now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Shandine so that we can talk about connecting to math instruction.
Thank you, Jen. I know a number of you have completed a couple of these trainings alongside me. So we're going to connect TSTM to Calm and Be Calm. And so the way that TSTM connects to Calm and Be Calm, we're gonna in a moment take a look at the Turk TERC website. And so I'll be able to show you some of the curriculum that so we're going to focus on Be Calm. And we're going to see within some of the materials provided that there is direct connection to TSTM. But first, a little bit about the approaches when we're thinking about instructing with math. I know a number of you have asked, how can we get more math from TSTM? And in some cases, we might have to think about how do we take those state initiatives and think about ways in which we can connect with that. And so I've been using Be Calm all semester. I've printed everything out, put it in a binder, and have really been trying to, again, pull threads and teach directly from the material. And so the way that this approach is different is we first start off with this concrete. So students have to have their hands on something. And so the material allows students to have a packet that they can work through. You're given a number of guides. So for example, these last 2 weeks, I've been working with geometry. And so the material allows students to cut out different shapes and manipulate those shapes to see how shapes can shift depending on how we turn, rotate, flip different shapes. And so that's an example of how we have concrete, so hands-on. And the next thing that we do after students manipulate different things is they need to then have create their own representational model from that. And so it offers, the materials offer a number of ways to sketch out whatever it is that you're working through. And then that final step is then we get into the abstract. And so with the Be Calm approach, we never want to start out with the abstract. Okay, we don't ever want to have students going in and solving equations. And so we always start with the concrete and then we build on those skills. And so then the students can finally see it in the way that it might have been presented in the formal education setting, where we see the equations and it's rote material and it's just practice, 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 and memorization. And our students are in our programs because this approach didn't work. And so we have to shift a little bit so that we always start out with the concrete. And so hands-on activities and group work. So this is the QR code. I'm sure somebody dropped the link in the chat. And so I'm going to take us to the Be Calm website. And so again, this is Be Calm. And so it was created through Turk, T-E-R-C. And so when you get to the website, it talks about the about, but you want to click on the tab that says curriculum. And so they've been around for a long time. When I first was introduced to the Be Calm material, they only had number sense and operation. And they've since expanded from number sense and operation. So this is starting out at a B2 level of math, but I've tweaked it so that I can start out even earlier at a B1 level or an EFL level 1. Okay. And so they also have multiplication concepts, division concepts. I love the multiplication concepts because, and I'm just going to pop in here so that you can see. So you have two versions. You can have a Word document, you can have a PDF. We've got a teacher's guide and then the student packet. And so again, I downloaded all of these, put it into a binder. And so I work directly through this using what I've already created and then overlapping with some of these with these guides. And so I'm going to open up the multiplication teachers. And so when we scroll down, you can see it gives some information. It talks about the learner level. It talks about using it in various formats. And so you're going to see within the lessons, it could be in person, it could be tailored to remote. It'll tell you that it's not recommended for smartphones. And so it'll give you different versions to work with. I like to work with all of it. For the most part, I do nearly every lesson in here. Sometimes I'll toss one out if I think I'm a little bit cramped for time, but it's a wonderful guide. Just read through everything. Don't, and this one, unlike the TSTM, I wouldn't recommend like skipping ahead. I would recommend reading through it. Because it builds one on top of the other. This one was a new one for me, but if you're familiar with math and you have a math background, the subitizing is a wonderful way to jumpstart multiplication by asking students to take a look at images and figure out what patterns are we seeing. And this one was wonderfully built and goes from subitizing into arrays. And when we teach at this level of math, arrays, right, and multiplication appears multiple times on the TABE assessment. And so again, you want to follow the guide and build one on top of the other. And it just gives you plenty of examples in here, ways to think about multiplication facts. Again, we start at the concrete, and this lesson is wonderful. So again, so we see here TSTM, so making those connections to TSTM, they've built it right into this guide. And so the first thing that we start off with is financial literacy. And so it's a conversation about beliefs and attitudes about money. And so it gives you, right, the explanation, how you might start this topic off. And then in the student packet, don't want to make anyone busy. Oh, I didn't have to go too far. So this is the student's version of it. And so just on that first page, so they're writing down beliefs and attitudes about money from their culture, from their family, their personal beliefs and attitudes. And so I just pull this one right up on our smart board. And then after students have filled it out on their own, we go around and I ask students to share out, and we'll continue to write things down on the board. And it develops, again, as all TSTM material, it develops that conversation and helps build that community within the classroom, thinking about how are we different, how are we similar. And then we go into other activities centered around multiplication. So you can see here that we then have a conversation about things that come in groups. And so we're still not talking about multiplication using any symbols, we're not yet using full vocabulary terms. We're talking about groups. And so when students think about multiplication in groups of, it helps them as we start to integrate the terms, it helps them to think about that a little bit more. And so all within, again, Be Calm, the curriculum, all of these lessons are designed similar to that multiplication. And so we've got division, you've got geometry. This is the one that I've been working with the last couple of weeks. The geometry lessons, this one you really, because geometry is one of those that research has shown needs to be taught one step after the other. This one is built in that way. And my students, again, it has been a really stretch for them to think about math in this different way. So again, the concrete, representational, abstract, it's been very different for them to think about it in that way. But once we shift that thinking, the students have been very receptive to all of the materials. And so this last week, we'll move into measurement and data. And then, of course, the benchmarks of fractions are usually at the ABE level 3. So I won't get a chance to teach this one. But again, I just wanted to share this website. And all of these lessons have TSTM connection embedded throughout. So are there any questions? And I see there might be some stuff in the chat. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you were in a lot of those sessions with me. And so I really, Sarah was able to just really dig in this spring semester into the material, and it has been amazing.
Shantine, I have a question
Yeah.
about like how you go about deciding which lessons or which subjects that you're doing, and then do you get through all of that material in a semester, or is it like this is what I'm focusing in on?
So I try to get through as much of the material as I can. Again, I take what I'm already using and I lay Be Calm on top of it. And so because I am trying much more to stick to the BCalm model of concrete. There may be some things that so the method that I was teaching previously, I try to shift some of that to the back end and integrate it into when we start using the vocabulary terms. But I try as much as possible to stick to the BCalm material now. And I don't get through all of it, but again, when you see if your students are progressing quickly through a topic, you might quickly get through one thing. And if you see them struggling a little bit more in other areas, then you might focus in on more of the content from the curriculum in those areas. And so you just really have to, and they have some really good exit tickets and strategies for you to get a pulse on how the classroom is reacting to the material. I will say that the material doesn't have a lot. Again, so we start at the ABE 2 and move forward. And so because it focuses on decimals in a different way. So it doesn't go down into a whole lot into some of the place value. I find that I'm still sticking by what I do when we talk about place value in some of those pieces, but it does offer a lot of real world representation of how decimals and numbers, right? That number sense, how it looks in the real world. And I have to say those real world examples in the curriculum have just really been, my students have really enjoyed being able to take the abstract piece of the math and really apply it in those real world settings.
And Sarah's got her hand up.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to comment that at Pima College ABEC, we got trained, a handful of us got trained on BCalm in the fall, and then we implemented in January a new level of math. We kind of moved our lowest level students, or our students who are struggling the most with the beginning Calm curriculum, into a separate level of class that we offer at 3 different times of day. And so again, we just started that in January. They use the BCalm curriculum exclusively, and it's been going great. It's been really successful for students at that level. The way that we have organized it so far, and you know, it's still new, so it may change as we see a need for that. But we have spent 8 weeks on those first topics that Shandine was talking about, the number sense, operation sense, multiplication and division. We're doing 8 weeks on that, and then another 8 weeks on the other 3 topics, which is the geometry, basic fractions, and measurement and data, with a tiny bit of review of the previous session also to start that out. So again, you know, it's really new. We don't have a lot of data to show how successful it is, but I think it's been going really well so far. So I'm very excited about this curriculum.
Thank you, Sarah.
And
Any
thank you
other
for presenting it today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love it. I love TSTM, and I feel like I love BCalm as much as TSTM.
Awesome.
Shandine, I'll just point out in the chat that Marilyn mentioned that they're hoping to do another cohort of BCalm this fall for those that are interested in learning more. And now she's on screen.
And can I just share too, Jack and Dee, and part of this comes looking at statewide data, and the largest percentage of our learners fall actually in that early math literacy category, and where BCalm can be most effective. So that's also there's a high percentage you have those students at your program or in your classrooms. Oh, thanks, Kenneth. Because Kenneth leads BCalm, so he's excited to have this conversation too, and has joined us today.
Awesome, Kenneth. Yeah. We're getting our MSGs back from students who have progress tested, and we're seeing wonderful results. And my students are really excited by that. Sarah says we have more instructors in B call. Yeah, so yeah, we would. I think if you guys could take that the fall cohort again, so when I did the Calm cohort, and so that was the upper, so some of those higher end of math. I was teaching in this lower level, and so they did say that they had those two. And so before they even did the training, I was already messing with the Be Calm number sense stuff, and was again just really loving it. So even if you can't take the fall cohort, folks, just jump in there, get stuff printed out, and give it a try. You will definitely be pleased by it, I think. All right, if there another no, oh,
Shandine,
go ahead.
one more thing. I was privy to our conversation prior to, and can you just share with the rest of the group about your student that was reluctant to try it this
Oh,
way because it's a different way to do math? Usually my students
yeah.
are like, can you just show me how to do this problem? And
Hmm.
they don't really want to know all the fluff. And it's not really fluff, it's the concrete stuff. And so maybe share that.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay. Um, so I always start out my semester with a Khan Academy video, Growing Your Mind. And so it kind of leads my students into moving from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. That way, all semester long, I can have this conversation with them of, if it's too easy, we're probably not learning. And so just remember when we're struggling here, when you're struggling, that's when the greatest learning is taking place. So we got into multiplication, like I showed you some of those concepts, which eventually lead into partial product. And I like to tell my students, place value is the foundation of math. Like in everything that we do moving forward, we can relate what we're doing to place value, hence partial product. And so then we get into partial quotients. And so my students were struggling, but we practiced, every day we did something that either focused on partial product or partial quotient. And so one student just was like, can I just do this the old method? Like, and I had to tell her no. We need to at least try. And I told them, in your homework, I'm not going to grade you on whether or not you got it right or wrong, but I need to see that you at least try to do the method that we're doing. And so for the rest of the class, she had a little bit of attitude with me and was pretty snappy and quick with me. And, I was again reminding them if it's too easy, we're not learning. And so try. And then the next time we met, she had progress tested, and I hadn't realized it because she just, was like, I have something to say. And so I let her have the floor. And she said, I just want to thank you so much for all the work you've done with us this semester. I progress tested yesterday, and I showed a lot of growth. And so after class, I was so curious about what she had done. And so she had moved from an NRS level 1 to an NRS level 3. And so that made her eligible to get into our pre-IET course that will start in the fall for phlebotomy. And so she was just so excited about that. So thank you, Jacqueline, for reminding me to share that success story.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing it. Because, I mean, we talk about like curriculum, and like our whole point is to move them forward so that they're feeling confident when they go out into the real world and use their skills and feel
Mm,
that they're making gains. But like two levels is, I mean, a gain is a gain, but two-level gain is pretty incredible. And the
yeah.
attitude gain too, right? Like, oh, I can
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, I can do it, right? We're moving from fixed to growth, but actually to see, right, to have her see that in her progress reporting, I think was the most impactful for her.
I'm excited
So,
to try out Be Calm a little bit more within our curriculum. I don't know about you all, but we're planning like next year and what that's going to look like within our classes. And we've had some shift in and teachers. And so trying to figure out also how to do this in like a multi-level class. Not sure if you have any words of wisdom for that piece of it.
I think for me, when I left it as in digital format, it was easy for me to forget and to be a little disorganized when presenting it. And so I quickly just, again, printed all of it out, put it in a binder. And so I make sure I read up on one of the, so either if multiplication is coming up, I'm going to read through all of it. I make a point to highlight those topics that I really want to hit on. And then in each of those lessons, something else that is really nice in here is that it will show you my drop down window wants to stay down. Maybe I can move it out of the way just a minute, you guys. There we go. And so you can see here the student packet page. And so I like to highlight that and then maybe put a little bit of notes on the side about how I'm connecting it to something because I love math. I love teaching it from this different perspective. And so I might put notes on how I make it connect to something that I'm already teaching. And so I'm blending the two like I do with all TSTM. I'm blending the two. But because TSTM is embedded right within it, it makes those TSTM skills much more prominent, I feel, when we're teaching from the BCom curriculum. So print it out would be my
Awesome.
suggestion.
And then in the chat, Kathy had a question, being curious about how much hand-holding that you needed to do with BCom. And then Sarah was encouraging her to come off mute and speak more to it. So maybe we can, if she's in a good
stop
place to do
share
that.
for a moment. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come on.
Yay.
Thanks,
So I
Kathy.
typed in there, and I guess kind of like what I put in the chat, although I probably spelled a lot of words wrong because I was trying to type quickly. Being in my particular classroom, we have 3 hours like many of us do, but I don't have just math and I don't have just low-level math in there. I have all levels of math along with all the other subjects in there. So I love the COM series, but I often find that I have to modify it much more because I don't have the time to stand and facilitate some of those activities with the group of students to the degree that I really would like to for them to get the most out of it. And so my question to you then is, and all of you that have used this, is can you do that with the BCom series and be effective in your opinion, or if you have tried it? I'm looking to you guys as the experts on this.
I'm gonna see if Sarah or anyone else has been using this can answer that because as I said, I have strictly level 1 and 2. And so I take the curriculum as is. And so, but I do a brief, so we do a brief overview, and then I might assign pages 1 through something to have them do on their own. But I also, Kathy, operate in a flipped classroom. And so I already have videos in my Blackboard shell that they need to watch. I create think charts so that they can, when they're watching the videos, they take their own notes and come back prepared. And in that way, I'm connecting with the students who may be in my classroom and that is their method of learning is they can do lecture. But then the flip side is we do some of those other pieces where it's hands-on, the concrete for the students who need the other piece of it. So I'm trying to connect to all modalities within the classroom, but I don't have a leveled class. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm any help, Kathy, unfortunately, because we do have leveled classes and we teach math separately from the other subjects. But I guess my question for you, Kathy, is how does it work? I mean, do you just like set different groups up with packets and everybody works kind of independently? Or, I mean, how do you like have them grouped and you go around and do a mini lesson with each group separately on a topic? Or, I mean, how is it working when you're not using BCalm? Because to me, like, maybe you don't have enough students to do leveled classes and like separate subject classes, but that feels like a best practice rather than a one-room schoolhouse, just in general, nothing to do with calm or be calm.
And I don't even want to get into that part of it, but I have like 20 students in my classroom. And so what I do in my classroom is station rotation, where we are going around and they have like a computer time, so their tech time, they have an independent activity to do, and then they have time with me. And we're all moving every hour, but it is all focused in on what are their needs at that point. So I have reading going on, I've got science going on, I've got different groups, but we do this rotation of, okay, now this particular group, I need you to go to the computers and do that. Again, I love Calm Math, so I like the idea of putting those videos on, and that's what I've been doing with my higher level math students. I have them do a lot of that pre-learning or doing, and if they haven't done it, do it during their computer time with me. But I like that idea. And I'm just curious, how is that working out for the lower levels? Because, and just in my experience, sometimes I find it a little bit harder to get my lower levels to get onto the computer to watch the videos prior to coming to class. And that's why I have the built-in computer time for them.
Yeah, I would think your lower level students need a lot of hand holding no matter what they're working on or what curricular resources you're using. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely.
So
So,
yeah, like I said, I can't, I have no experience with the kind of setup you're talking about, but it seems like you could do like Shandine said and, give them a mini lesson and then have them work independently for a while. But I think it would take them working with you first.
mhm,
You wouldn't be able to have them be like the last group to rotate through to you, right? You'd have to teach them first and then have them
mhm.
work independently. Do you agree, Shandine?
I do. And so the way I combat, so again, when we think about blending things, I'm always blending digital skills, digital learning. And so right up front, we are getting into all of the different technology pieces, and it's a kind of, we're scaffolding that so that by the time we get into more of the multiplication, students have a firm grounding in the digital skills. And so I always start with digital skills first because I know I never want to lose a student because they didn't have the digital skills necessary to do the learning. So I start there, and so again, I teach, so the way I do the digital skills piece, I like to do history of math. So they explore math cultures around the world, right? TSTM. Um, and so we explore math around the world at different time periods, and they do a short little research. And so we use Google Slides to continue to build on those skills. We do a history of money. And so that's kind of where I start with the levels 1 and 2 so that we're building skills. And then when I introduce the Be Calm, we always start with the lecture piece. So that's the flipped classroom. So they, by that point, can watch videos on their own, they can navigate. And then when they come to the classroom, so maybe in your station rotation, it would be, okay, you can pick a couple of things to do from the teacher's guide with them, and then they can use the packet on their own, and maybe they work in a group on their own to get through those pages.
Thank you so much. I love hearing your suggestions because you've used it so that that I can get into it easier and make it more productive. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think Kathy, our learning center is set up similarly. Like we have the bulk of the people that are in a certain area or a certain group. So what we usually do is have a lesson that everybody is working off of, and then we've had people that are more advanced and they can move forward. So we'll have tomorrow's like some extra work with that, or try to get it like a little bit deeper, or word problems maybe within the same kind of category. So um, I might try suggesting some of that, but for our classes, we don't have enough staff or enough classrooms even to have different levels of them classes, and then we also um, like the time frame for the students that are able to come. So sometimes you might have this lesson and it's great and it's planned out and you've got it all together, but then they work that day or, life happens. And so with our program, it's a little bit different and it does present that challenge. But I think that the TSTM lessons in general can kind of help people jump in and out as they come in. Um, and that's how it's worked with us.
Thank you.
Other thoughts or suggestions? All right, so now it's my turn. We're gonna have more discussion. Yesterday, I attended a community of practice with City of Phoenix, and it was in regards to apprenticeships. And one of the things that this kind of pulled up and it pulled back to TSTM was one of the panelists who is a sheet metal worker. One of the questions was like, what do you need educators to prepare the students for when they come to see you? What are you lacking? What do you need? And so part of it, what he had said that he needed was people to know math skills, know how to do some of the real world math skills like measuring and angles and acute angles and obtuse angles. And one of the other panelists was like, "Oh, thanks for sharing that because my middle schooler always asks me like, when am I ever going to use this?" And so having like real world examples of how you can use it. Um, so I was connecting it there and thinking, how can we look at the apprenticeship guidelines because they have some tests that are out there. So when you're looking at pulling in real world examples, pull in some of those test questions, whether it be the GED test questions or, apprenticeship preparation test questions. And then it's a like kind of built-in TSTM lesson that you can say, okay, you need to, like, for example, the semiconductor facility. You've got, microchips, that's one piece of it, but you also have the heating and cooling place that needs to make sure to keep the plant cool enough so that you're not breaking anything, like the chips are being produced and more efficiently. So sometimes we think of just the microchip as the apprenticeship, but then there's like the AC and the sheet metal workers and things like that. And so as I was connecting it to my life, and you can also do this with your students, is like, thinking about what work our families have done. Um, my dad was a sheet metal worker in the military, and I was like, he just works on helicopters, but not thinking how that job can translate outside of aviation into like those transferable skills. So we have a couple of questions here. For those of you who are using Calm and BCalm, how are you connecting TSTM using it in your math instruction? How would you build on this work in your own program or in your own classroom? And what are some other ways that you might be able to connect TSTM with other statewide initiatives like Arise, IET instruction? And so as we open this floor for discussion, you can pick one or all of the things that you want to share. And since we're a small group, we'd love to hear from you all.
Hello, everyone. I was supposed to talk now.
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
confused.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's perfect. You did perfectly.
Sorry. Well, right now I'm working on a big project, and then my project is about civics. And the way that we're being learning civics right now is not conducive to a lot of communication, which is the part that I don't like. So I'm using the TSM principles to be more specific about what really is it that we are learning. Are we learning about just the facts that independence is on July 4th, 1776, and you had to learn that? Or are we learning behind that, like why is that important in this country or in your own country, the country you're coming from? And so using communication to express those ideas, that's what I'm working on right now.
Thanks for sharing that. It reminds me, I started TSTM, the civics lessons with some of my students, and then I've also pulled in some Ellie for my ESL students, and we were working on there's a packet for civics, and it talks about all the rights and benefits of being a citizen or living in the United States, and trying to explain some of those abstract. I wish there was some more concrete examples, and maybe some of you seasoned ESL instructors might have that. But like, how do you talk about due process and, the rights of everybody to the red cards and like what your rights are, especially in where we are in the country with ICE and things like that. Like there's a lot of fear around that. And so Ellie is the English language learning
But
ELLI. Yes, it used to be something else, like some other name before. Um, thank you, Marilyn, for that. And she dropped a link in the chat. So I'm
and
trying like working on that, and we talked about like where people came from, even words like immigrate and immigrate with the I versus the E, different things. So Marilyn, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so if you're not familiar with America, well, there's America 250 and then there's Arizona 250, and then I'll pop in a second. We have a flyer with resources just for adult ed. But it's America's 250th birthday this year, so if there's a great time to bring in TSTM civics lessons, I feel like this is the time to do it. And they also have some really cool activities across the state and across the United States, even things like a national picnic where people bring cultural foods from all over, but it's going to be shared nationally. There's also places where students can share like their own stories and get put into a national archive of like what it is to be an American. And there are some and so not all of it's K-12 centric, which is sometimes you kind of get nervous about that. There's a Freedom March for veterans that people can join in, art exhibitions, and there's even a traveling museum, and you can check out the dates where they're Arizona's bringing the Liberty Bell, our little Liberty Bell across the state. So even in our rural areas where they normally don't have access or can't come all the way to Phoenix, they can kind of see some cool artifacts. And there's essay contests, things like that. So I would definitely check it out, because if it might be a great way to connect some of this learning in like a real world context, because there's kind of a reason behind it, and get our students involved. There's also a Vote to 50 initiative, or it's about registering people to vote, which is really relevant too for our learners. So I sent the link in there, and then I will also send you the resource that we created. Just give me a minute to pull it. But just to kind of connect with kind of maybe an idea for you as you move through this discussion, and how we're teaching civics and finding different ways to engage in civics conversations that and what really it means to be civically engaged, because
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Thanks for sharing that resource. One of the things that came up was asylum, and a lot of my students was like, I don't know what that means. And then we read like what it meant, and they were like, oh, that's me. Like I came here because I'm from a war-torn country and I needed safety. And so speaking through some of those, bringing in like their own experiences really connects those concepts and makes it more concrete for them. So thanks for sharing, Yesenia. Anybody else want to share?
Really quickly, after Yesenia had been sharing what she does, I just wanted to also chime in that the geometry lesson has a lesson about how we can see parallel lines in the American flag, and then it leads into an additional lesson about flags. And so students can bring in flags from their home countries, from the state. I could see tribal flags being a part of it. And so that would be, I think, a fun way to connect math to a civics lesson.
I love that idea of just being able to pull in geometry from things that are there, that we might not have noticed before. All of a sudden, they're noticing all the parallel lines and maybe arrays within flags, which is pretty cool. Oh, and there's a flyer that Marilyn posted into the chat. And I think this is at 250, America 250 connection, but with Arizona. Why are you guys acting so shy? You should tell us what you're doing.
I guess I can go. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Thanks,
So
Christine.
yeah, so I know for me right now I'm not doing as much teaching, more kind of on the behind the scenes kind of thing, but I know I do oversee like the Tech Plus program for our students, and I know sometimes when our students are like finishing up their HSE diplomas, they're like Tech Plus, they kind of associate it with like a lot of math stuff going on. So I know, but now that I've been a part of multiple cohorts, it's mostly like exponents that gets taught in there, and I know for a lot of students that's something that because of course with math it's always like you said what is this in the real life, like this real life kind of component is like with what I use with like volume surface area. It's like I have the students like bring their objects like this is what these things are in real life. Like you see these things every day, kind of thing. So it's just kind of more incorporating what they see visually. Like I did like a math boot camp the other few weeks ago, and I'm like I don't know what these shapes are, but then I see like across the room like there's this, there's that, and then of course that gets them thinking, so that way they feel more confident about it, kind of thing. And of course, math is everywhere, and whether it's for IET or anything, it's just all around. And then I always tell students that you guys are all experts at math when it comes to money. So I use money as kind of that example, because sometimes students come to me saying positives, negatives. These are important things to know because the example that I use is if somebody owes you money, you're gonna know that. If you have to pay somebody, I always tell them, I always joke around, you hope they forget about that, kind of thing. But anyway, but that's kind of, that these are these real life kind of scenarios where you want to make sure when you go. My mom is the kind to look at a receipt every time she buys something. Is like make sure I didn't get ripped off kind of thing. So it's kind of like that real life experience, and that stuff that I try to work with them, like use money as a way to kind of um, there's these complex topics, but money can always apply everywhere. So, and everybody loves money. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Um, so the flyer that Marilyn had posted is kind of a cheat sheet that kind of helps you navigate, but you have more information on the actual website. And Yesenia's already shared it with her students. Love it. They'll have discussions about it. I think that's a cool way for them also to get to know Arizona, just be able to like either check in. One of the projects that I worked on with some of my students is to create a digital infographic, and they talked about their places that they would recommend other people coming to from where they're from. So different visitor touristy types of spots if you were ever in Taiwan or in Zimbabwe, those type of things. And so just having them share, their eyes light up when they're talking about, they're sharing their country with other people, and just being able to have conversations, I think, and the tech skills, right? The behind the scenes, how do you use different digital tools and be able to move around in there. And let's see. And then Marilyn reminded us to make sure that we're looking at both the national and the local. And there's a link to the potluck, which would be really cool, the American potluck. Food has a way of really bringing communities together, and being able to like share out the recipes. There's a lot of math that could be used there as well if you're scaling that. So you have this recipe that feeds 4, but really you have 12 guests or 13 guests. There's that not easily divisible. So like, how much do you make? Do you give everybody smaller plates, or do you make another batch of it and have leftovers for later? So lots of different conversations that come around from food. And anybody else have anything that they'd like to add?
I just wanted to point out, Gustavo had the wonderful idea about seeing, right, and telling your students, where do you see this in the real world? And I just wanted to point out that in the worksheets, just about every time you're learning a new concept, the worksheet asks students to identify where they see it and then draw it in 2 different ways.
Ooh. That really will help it become more tangible, right? So you learned about, I don't know, I'm thinking of, because of coffee, like I'm thinking of the cylinder, like where do you see it? How is this a certain amount of ounces, but this other cup might be taller and it's the same amount of ounces, and kind of talk about volume that way. But the more you see it, you draw it, you're activating different parts of your brain for your students. And so that's pretty neat. Um, don't forget to check out that link to the America's Potluck, which is pretty cool. And I love potlucks, and there's all kinds of ways to get people involved and share their culture and their food with others. I think when you talk about those things, it's relatable, and it's funny how like they can look at that and say, "Oh, we make that too, but we tweak that recipe and use this other spice or this other thing." And it changes it. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. So some final thoughts. Anything else anybody else might want to share that might not be related to discussion? Can you believe it's already May? We're going to be having a new year, new fiscal year starting soon, new school year. We're ending the year. Um, Thinking about all the ways to wrap up this year with our students. With me and my family, I have a high schooler that's graduating and a middle schooler that's going to start 9th grade next year. So it comes so quickly, their education area. Um, thank you. Shandine's asking if anybody else shares it's going to be May, and thanks. No.
I guess it's just me. Oh, the whole staff, Marilyn said. Okay.
Yes. And thanks for the congratulations. I think about as we're like embarking on a new school year for my son, adulthood, there's all the things that come with that. And reflecting back on how far we've come, we've reviewed a lot of different TSTM lessons. I think all of you that are here have gone through the TSTM like year cohorts with us, and it's really cool to see how else we can continue to share and learning through there. And yes, he is a Skyhawk alumni, Deer Valley graduate. So cool that there's some Deer Valley alum here as well. And Yesenia said, Rowan will graduate from high school in 3 weeks. It goes by so fast. I was thinking my son had a couple more weeks. He's like, Mom, last day of school is next Friday. I'm like, wait, what? So, Yes, congratulations to all the graduates. Go ahead and go on to the next slide. We do want to remind you that although the school years are ending and our community practices for this year is coming to an end, we still have our discussion groups. We still have Canvas to add on. We'll update those with the links that Marilyn shared today so that you all have access to that. Oftentimes I go back and I'm like, wait, there was this really great resource. Where can I find it? So you can always go back to the community of practice. You could always reach out to one of us. And like Marilyn today was like, Shandine was looking for something with Arise, AKA Star, trying to find that. And we're like, oh yeah, we could just go here or we could reach out to each other. So that's what the community is about. If I have a question, any of us have a question, we reach out to each other. And we will. And we're going to be keeping it open, keeping the conversation going. And next year, we're looking at how is this going to continue? Because we do want to continue the community of practice. I feel like we're all growing and evolving with our experiences, and there other questions might come up. And so we want to continue this in the new year. And I know you all love some what did we call it? We didn't call it homework, call it pre-work, but reflection and discussion questions. And so we've put a few more in there just so that way you have more to think about and chew on and be able to write in, add to the discussion, comment on each other. Lots of learning that's happening. And so we want to reflect and think about that and come back to it. And TSTM has a special place in my heart, and I can't believe we're done with another year of work. And so lots of love in the chat, and Jen is going to take us home now.
All right, thank you so much, Jack and Dee. So there are still additional training opportunities that are coming up this summer. First is leveraging student stories to support learning differences, which is going to be presented by Cynthia Peters on May 6th, and then part 2 is on May 20th. And everybody who attends that and participates will get a subscription to the Change Agent. So you definitely don't want to miss that one. And then I am going to be doing the teaching and learning webinar about digital routines and building digital schools without burnout on June 3rd. And the second session is going to be on June 17th. So those are definitely things that you do not want to miss. And although this is our last session for this program year, we are hoping to keep this group going through the next program year. So please stay tuned for registration information. TSTM opportunities will also be taking place at our Fall Institute, which is going to be September 17th through 19th. So again, until next time, everybody, goodbye. And thank you all for being a part of this year's community of practice. It was amazing and we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Jen, can you go back to the slide with the trainings? Oh, sorry, just stop sharing.
Yeah, Shandine's gonna share.
Thank you. Appreciate that.